Once upon a time, in a quiet village, there lived a poor young girl with a heart full of dreams and wonder. Despite her poverty, the girl had a gentle soul and kind heart, and her thoughts often wandered toward the prince of the city. She had seen him only from afar, but she had fallen deeply in love with his grace, kindness, and noble spirit. Her love was not based on dreams of gold or crowns. She simply admired the prince for who he truly was. Day and night, she thought of him. No other man seemed to matter, for her heart already belonged to the prince. Many suitors came asking for her hand, good men from humble backgrounds, but she gently refused each of them without hesitation. Her friends and family tried to convince her. "Let go of this impossible love," they said. "You deserve a real future." They thought she was chasing wealth and position, but she alone knew that her love was pure and without any selfish desire. Seasons passed, and then news spread through the land. The king had decided it was time for the prince to marry. Everyone expected him to marry a noble girl from a rich family. The city buzzed with gossip and excitement at the news. But the prince surprised everyone. He asked his father for permission to set his own condition for choosing a bride. The king was puzzled but agreed. He trusted his son's wisdom and believed in the fairness of whatever plan he had. Soon after, the prince made a public announcement. All the unmarried girls in the city were invited to the main square. There, he would choose his wife, but only after testing their patience, effort, and perhaps something much deeper than appearances. He declared, "Each girl will receive a flower seed. In a few months, return with the flower you have grown. The girl who brings the most beautiful flower will become my bride." He added, keeping a secret hidden behind the test. Girls from every corner of the city gathered. Rich or poor, plain or pretty, each came to take a seed from him. The poor girl also came, trembling with hope. When the prince gave her a seed, their hands briefly touched. Her heart soared. She returned home with a joyful spirit and planted the seed carefully in a pot by her window, full of dreams. She watered the soil daily, gave it sunlight, and spoke to it kindly, waiting for a tiny green sprout to appear. But nothing grew. The soil remained bare. Days turned into weeks, and her hope slowly began to wither like a dry leaf. She tried changing the soil, adjusting light, even adding nutrients, but still the pot remained stubbornly empty and lifeless. Her friends mocked her. "Do you really think the prince will pick you, a girl with no flower to show?" She smiled gently and replied, "Even if I'm not chosen, I'm happy to have taken part. That's enough for me." Others showed off their blooming flowers, roses, lilies, and rare, colorful blossoms. Her heart sank, but she stayed honest and true. As the final day approached, excitement filled the city. Every girl dressed in her best and brought her most beautiful flower. The poor girl wore her simplest clean dress, tied her hair neatly, and held her empty flower pot with trembling hands. She joined the other girls walking to the palace, each holding their flowery pots with pride and hopeful anticipation. The grand hall was filled with fragrance, colors, and chatter, but the poor girl stood quietly in a corner, feeling small. The prince walked among the girls, looking at each flower carefully. He smiled politely, but his eyes searched for something deeper. Some girls giggled, others boasted. A few cast mocking glances at the poor girl's empty pot, whispering behind their fans. Finally, the prince reached the girl with no flower. He paused, studied the empty pot, and then looked into her eyes. A soft smile touched his face, just like the one from months before. He gently picked up the pot and held it. Then he walked over to the king, leaned in, and whispered something in his father's ear. The king smiled knowingly. The prince turned to the crowd and raised his voice. "I have chosen my bride. It is this girl with the empty pot." Everyone gasped in shock. Whispers filled the air. How could he choose her? She failed. She has nothing to show. The prince lifted his hand for silence. "Let me explain," he said. "The seeds I gave all of you could not grow. They were boiled dead seeds. It was impossible for any flower to bloom from them, no matter how hard you tried." He looked around, and yet, many of you came with beautiful flowers. That means you cheated and replaced the seed I gave. But this girl, he continued, did not lie. She brought an empty pot, even knowing it might mean losing her chance. She stayed honest. She did not fake success. And that is the kind of person I want by my side forever. Tears welled up in the girl's eyes. She had expected nothing, only a last look at the prince. And now, she had everything. The crowd, once mocking, grew silent. Heads lowered. Some were ashamed. Others clapped slowly, realizing the depth of the prince's test. The king stepped forward and embraced the girl. "You have passed the greatest test of all," he said, "the test of truth." Preparations for the royal wedding began. The girl, once poor and mocked, was now honored as the most worthy among them. Not because she wore fine clothes or brought a rare flower, but because her honesty had bloomed where others' lies had rooted. The prince stood beside her proudly. "You show me what no flower ever could. True character, honesty, and courage," he told her. Their wedding was celebrated throughout the kingdom. People spoke of the girl with the empty pot who had won the prince's heart. She became a queen not through beauty or wealth, but through the simple and rare virtue of telling the truth. And so, the poor girl lived happily ever after, not just as a royal wife, but as a shining example of honesty and love. Empty hands with truth are worth more than full hands with lies. Integrity is the seed from which real love grows.